A very good morning to all of you. It's my pleasure to stand before you today on behalf of the organizing committee and the faculty members of Manu Lucknow campus to welcome you all to the inaugural session of the two-day national conference on evolution and shifts, emerging patterns in literature and language. We are truly excited to have you all here for this event. This inaugural session would be chaired by Professor Shagufta Shaheen, who is the OSD of our university. I request you, ma'am, please come up on the dais. The keynote lecture would be delivered by Professor Nishi Pandey, Professor of Eminence from University of Lucknow, Department of English. Ma'am. For this inaugural session, we are fortunate to have Professor Rajneesh Arora as the guest of honor. Sir, please. And the energy and soul behind all this, the in charge of the Lucknow campus and the coordinator of the conference, Professor Humayun Yaqub. As per the tradition of our university, to formally begin the program today, I call upon Amjad Hussain, who is a student of MA at our campus, to recite a few verses from the Holy Quran.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو عالم الغيب والشهادة هو الرحمن الرحيم. هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الملك القدوس السلام المؤمن المهيمن العزيز الجبار. المهيمن العزيز الجبار المتكبر. سبحان الله عما يشركون. هو الله الخالق البارئ المصور له الأسماء الحسنى يسبح له ما في السماوات والأرض وهو العزيز الحكيم. वही अल्लाह है जिसके सिवा कोई माबूद नहीं। वो छुपे खुले का जानने वाला, बड़ा मेहरबान रहम करने वाला है। वही अल्लाह है जिसके सिवा कोई माबूद नहीं। वो बादशाह है निहायत पाक, सब ऐबों से साफ, अमन देने वाला, निगहबान, गालिब जोर आवर और बड़ाई वाला है। पाक है अल्लाह उन तमाम चीज़ों से जिन्हें ये उसका शरीक बनाते हैं। वही अल्लाह है जो पैदा करने वाला है, वजूद बख्शने वाला है, सूरत बनाने वाला है। उसी के लिए निहायत अच्छे नाम हैं। आसमान और ज़मीन के तमाम चीज़ें उसकी पाकी बयान करती है। वही गालिब हिकमत वाला है। शुक्रिया वस्सलाम।
What a beautiful message from the Holy Book. Thank you, Amjad. The theme of our conference focuses on fascinating journey of literature and language, exploring how they continuously transformed over time. Through this conference, we plan to delve into how the historical events, cultural movements, and technological advancements have played a key role in shaping how we use language and how we express it in literature. Through this conference, we aim to reflect on how the world around us, through cultural shifts, technological progress, and changing societal needs, has impacted literature and language alike. We are truly honored to have Professor Shagufta Shaheen with us today to chair the inaugural session of this national conference. Ma'am has previously served as the head Department of English at Manu, Hyderabad, and is currently working as officer on a special duty at our university. Her areas of specialization include comparative literature, translation studies, Indian writing in English, Urdu, and Deccan literature. She is known in the academic world for her extensive contributions to literary studies, particularly in South Asian literature and cultural identity. Her vision and leadership have been instrumental in elevating the academic standards of our university. She played a key role in establishing the Department of Comparative Literature and Linguistics, further enhancing the university's academic growth. We are privileged to have her with us today. I request Professor Humayun Yaqub, in charge Lucknow campus, to present a shawl and memento to ma'am as a token of respect. It is with immense honor and great pride that I stand here today, struggling to find words to express how truly elated and privileged I feel to introduce two of my mentors. Our keynote speaker for today's inaugural session, Professor Nishi Pandey, is a professor of eminence in the Department of English at the University of Lucknow. She is one who not only introduced me to the world of drama, but also helped me discover the profound nuances of theater when I was a student at Lucknow University around 2 decades back. To have had the opportunity to be her student is something I really cherish even today. Professor Nishi Pandey is known for her remarkable academic achievements and exceptional administrative leadership. She made history by becoming the first woman to hold several key positions, including Dean of Student Welfare, Chief Provost, Director of the Planning and Development Board, Director International Collaboration, Director of the Academic Staff College, and Chief Proctor. For her outstanding academic and administrative accomplishments, as well as her lifelong dedication for empowering women, she has received numerous prestigious honors, including Saraswati Samman and Rani Lakshmi Bai Bravery Award from the government of Uttar Pradesh. She has also been the recipient of over 25 national and international scholarships from esteemed institutions such as Fulbright Foundation, USA, Charles Wallace Trust, UK, and Oxford University, among others. The Lucknow campus is truly privileged to welcome such an inspiring scholar and a role model. We are honored to have her with us today. I request Professor Shagufta Shaheen, ma'am, to present a shawl and memento to ma'am as a token of welcome. We are truly privileged to have with us today our esteemed guest of honor, Professor Rajneesh Arora, Director of the English and Foreign Languages University, Lucknow campus. He is not only my guru and mentor, but also the person who introduced me to the captivating world of linguistics and critical discourse analysis. I am deeply grateful to him for shaping my academic journey for everything I have learned from him. It is because of his guidance that I stand here today. Professor Rajneesh Arora is the director of the Lucknow campus at the English and Foreign Languages University, where he also serves as professor in the Department of Linguistics and Comparative English. He earned his PhD from Punjab University and is a recipient of British Council Hornby Scholarship and has been a visiting fellow at the Center for Applied Linguistics at University of Warwick. He has authored 2 textbooks and published dozens of articles and research papers in national and international journals. His research interests include critical discourse analysis, pragmatics, language in advertising, and history of English language teaching in India. Now, when you are on a mic, you can take certain liberties. So, sir, I would like to take this liberty of presenting a shawl and a memento to you myself. It would be an honor for me. Now I request Professor 𝐋𝐈𝐕𝐄, in charge Lucknow campus, to introduce the theme of the conference and formally welcome our distinguished guests today.
Esteemed Chair, Professor Shagufta Shaheen, Professor Nishi Pandey, Professor of Eminence at Department of English and Modern European Languages, University of Lucknow, Professor Rajneesh Arora, Director, English and Foreign Language University, Lucknow, all the delegates from various universities, researchers, students, and friends, Adab, and a very good morning to all of you. Welcome to the city of Lucknow, famous for its tehzeeb and nafasat, its culture and sophistication. It is my great pleasure to welcome you all to the 2-day National Conference on Evolution and Shifts, Emerging Patterns in Literature and Languages, organized by the Department of English, Maulana Azad National Urdu University, Lucknow campus. The Lucknow campus was established in the year 2009 and offers UG, PG, and PhD programs in 4 major languages: Urdu, English, Persian, and Arabic. Our focus is on the holistic development of the students and to nurture critical thinking. The Lucknow campus of Maulana Azad National Urdu University has been striving to engage and dedicate itself to the cause of teaching, learning, and research. For this purpose, we have been conducting and organizing seminars, workshops, and extension lectures and talks by eminent guests to further expand the horizons of our students. Humanity is witnessing a paradigmatic shift in all fields of existence, and literature, being the mirror of life and language its medium, have been reflecting new patterns to accommodate these changes. It is with these objectives that Lucknow campus has organized its first 2-day national conference. The call for papers for the conference received a heartening response from researchers as well as teaching faculty, both young and experienced, from all over the country. As we gather here to explore and discuss the dynamic transformations within literary and linguistic landscapes, I am reminded of a profound quotation by the philosopher Heraclitus, and I quote, "The only constant in life is change," unquote. This insightful observation underscores the very essence of our conference theme as we examine how historical and technological and cultural changes have influenced the structures, themes, and expressions in English language and literature. The theme of this conference is particularly significant as we delve into the intricate patterns and shifts that continue to shape contemporary discourse. In our rapidly changing world, literature and language are not static entities. They evolve and transform in response to societal changes, technological advancements, and cultural shifts. This conference aims to shed light on these evolving patterns, providing a platform for scholars, researchers, and educators to engage in meaningful discussions and share their insights. As we explore the intersection of tradition and innovation, we recognize the importance of understanding the past while embracing the future. The study of literature and language allows us to reflect on our collective history, identity, and cultural heritage, while also equipping us with the tools to navigate the complexities of modern life. By examining the dynamic interplay between continuity and change, we can gain a deeper appreciation of the role literature and language play in shaping our world. I would like to extend a warm welcome to our esteemed keynote speaker, Professor Nishi Pandey, our guest of honor, Professor Rajneesh Arora, our respected chair, Professor Shagufta Shaheen, our plenary speaker, Dr. Seher Rahman, and all the other delegates and attendees. Your presence here today is a testament to your dedication to advancing the fields of literature and language. We look forward to your contributions and the valuable perspectives you will bring to this conference. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Syed Ainul Hassan, our patron, Professor Shagufta Shaheen, and Registrar, Professor Ishtiaq Ahmed, and Professor Nagendra, Head Department of English, for their unwavering support and guidance. Their commitment to fostering academic excellence and cultural understanding is truly commendable. Additionally, I extend my heartfelt thanks to our convener, Dr. Shah Muhammad Faiz, and the entire organizing team for their relentless efforts in organizing this event. Your hard work and dedication have been instrumental in making this conference possible. Once again, welcome to the two-day National Conference on Evolution and Shifts, Emerging Patterns in Literature and Languages. We hope you have a productive and enriching experience, and we look forward to the engaging discussions and collaborations that will take place over the next 2 days. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Professor Huma. Now, without any further delay, I request our keynote speaker, Professor Nishi Pandey, to present the address.
Professor Shagufta Shaheen, Professor Rajneesh Arora, Professor Huma Yaqub, Dr. S. Mohammed Fayaz. Let me begin by saying how privileged I am that I've been invited today to deliver the keynote address at this two-day National Conference on Evolution and Shifts, Emerging Patterns in Literature and Language. My deepest gratitude. Literature and language have been a very integral part of human civilization since ancient times, and we know that. They serve as vehicles for storytelling, for expression, for communication across cultures and generations. From the oral traditions of the ancient civilizations to the written texts of classical literature, the elaboration of literary forms and linguistic structures has been shaped by different literal, artistic, and technological influences. In the contemporary period, literature and language are passing through profound transformations, driven by rapid-fire advancement in technology, globalization, audiobooks, changing socio-artistic dynamics, digital platforms. Their arrival has revolutionized the way literature is produced, circulated, and consumed. It has given rise to ebooks, audiobooks, online publishing platforms, and social media-driven literary communities. The technological inventions haven't only expanded access to literature, but have also challenged traditional notions of authorship, narrative structures, and the boundaries between fiction and reality. So, when we look at what the challenges are before us, we have to understand that the interplay between literature and technology and trans-languaging is an emerging trend, and it makes it relevant to focus, therefore, on the emerging trends in literature and language within a certain framework of contemporary trends, technology, digital platforms, augmented reality, globalization, diversity, representation, cultural exchange, linguistic evolution, and sustainability. That's the framework within which we have to operate. And that's no mean task. It's a huge framework within which we have to work. Technological inventions have not just expanded our access to literature, but have challenged, as I said earlier, our notions of narrative structures. Who is the author? And it is blurring the boundaries between fiction and reality. We do understand that cybertext, hypertext, cyber literature, they are all considered part of literature now. In fact, I've had a research scholar some 10 years back who came all the way from Delhi to work with me on hypertext. Because professors at the university in Delhi said, not ready for research. But she's done such phenomenal research on hypertext and hyperfiction, which has now been published as a book. This was about 10 years back, because I had at an international conference talked about it when hypertext was just in its very nascent stage. So when we look at all of this, we see the complex nature of how texts have begun to be produced. And therefore, when we look at cyber literature and hypertext literature, we realize that they include literary texts of more complex structure. For example, multimedia cybertexts, right? Then you've got various hypertext is not just one. There are multiple solutions to hypertext. They use, these would then become authentic examples of multimedia artifacts, something known as merging literatures, visual arts, film, and music. So all these lines are beginning to get blurred. Literature in the digital age, if you look at it, we've got ebooks, we've got audiobooks, we've got digital platforms which give readers an opportunity to carry libraries in their pockets. What has this led to? Change in reading habits. People are no longer picking up a book to read. You could be reading in between anywhere. You have a Kindle. You can go online and start reading any material. You want to read something on the Wikipedia, you need information on something, you're not necessarily going into a research journal, you're just searching the net. So the kind of literature that is available, I'm not talking only of just literary text, but I'm talking of how texts of all kinds need to be generated and will be generated. The shift, therefore, is in storytelling. How do you tell the story? And that storytelling and its medium becomes important. What medium are you using? You do realize that there has been a democratization of literature. It is not the realm of only the Pandits who said, "Ki ab hum aapko iske aage kuch nahi batate." Everybody can read anything. Literature has truly been democratized. And you know that the effect of social media platforms such as Twitter, Instagram, Goodreads. They are now an integral part of our literary culture. There is, or even on Twitter, which is now known as X, I think, right? Minimum words, write a story. There's poetry coming up. So that is something that you will have to contend with. When we talk of language diversity, digital technology has revolutionized language, the use. And why? Because globalization has resulted in an increase in multilingualism and language borrowing. We borrow from other languages faster. Linguistic evolution of new genres of language. They blur the boundaries between written and visual language and challenges traditional notions of linguistic competence and literacy. There is also a growing awareness for language preservation and revitalization. We are losing so many languages. The technology is being used to retrieve and to store, and efforts to restore. So there's the process of preservation and revitalization of endangered languages and linguistic heritage has come to the fore. Another area in which those of us in literary studies have to engage ourselves and to prepare our students for. Our students don't have to just come in. If they're coming in for literature, I'm not just talking of English literature, I'm talking of any literature, any language. You're doing Urdu literature, you're doing English, Hindi, whatever. This is a challenge for all literatures, all forms. And therefore, you have to get your students ready, not just for becoming professors or teachers of a particular language, but to go into various areas. For example, comparative studies. For example, to go into cultural studies. Literature departments will no longer remain the domain of any particular language. So there will be no English literature, Urdu literature. Departments of literature and culture. In fact, I was just discussing that I'm on the core action group of the Prime Minister's Committee on Language, Literature and Culture. It's called Language, Literature, Culture. And we had the task of going through all the NCERT books to decide what kind of literature will be allowed to go. One of the major things that I did, I'm very proud to say it, is take Shakespeare off. Don't teach your students of class 8, 9, and 10 speeches of Shakespeare. I hated that the most in my life. Introduce them to Shakespeare's original text when you come into BA. And you want to do English literature. You want to introduce the value-based content of Shakespeare. You can do that through Mary and Charles Lamb's story. Tell the tales pick up any. Why do you have to make them learn the quality of mercy is not strained, and 8th class ka bachcha doesn't understand a bit of what he's reading and studying? It doesn't add to his language proficiency. It's an outdated language. It's not even a language that is used now. And if you look at the way at which the language proficiency is dropping amongst our students, they cannot write 5 lines of an application without grammatical errors, English, Hindi, or Urdu. They can't. Now, that's the saddest part. But there are, I used another term, translanguaging. Another challenge for us is translanguaging. Translanguaging is a hugely emerging trend wherein the students have an ability to move lucidly between languages. आपके क्लास में एक बच्चा हो सकता है जो आधी बात आपकी उर्दू में समझ रहा है, आधी हिंदी में समझ रहा है, आधा अंग्रेजी में समझ रहा है, आधा अवधी में समझ रहा है क्योंकि वो अवध में रहता है. That's translanguaging. Now, for you, what is the challenge as a teacher? What is it? What is changing? What is it that you need to be aware of? That we can think in multiple languages and we can think simultaneously. We can use our own language, and we always use our own language to learn any other language, either as a second language or as a third language or a fourth language. So I listed certain things for you in this time which are important, and I'll just elaborate a teeny bit on it before I close. The evolution of narrative forms. Digital platforms have impacted the way you tell the stories and how they are told and how they are consumed. And you must understand that all digital platforms are now offering opportunities for interactive storytelling, multimedia integration, non-linear narratives, and they transcend the limitation of print. Hypertext में ऐसा भी होता है कि एक कहानी है, ठीक? And it's an interactive way to move. You will have to choose something which will take you to a different line of action. And you can choose. So it will depend from reader to reader which line of action would they like to choose. There is no linearity in the narrative. You will jump from one into the other, into the other, into the other, and then you will build the story in your own head. That's how hypertext moves. So each one of you will understand it your way. And in hypertext, you will then understand that there are multiple, there is so much of multimedia integration in that, no non-linear narratives. And it will obviously transcend the framework of the print media. So medium, I've just spoken about the change in mediums. You have ebooks, you've got audiobooks, online publishing platforms. These have emerged as very powerful tools for authors. And they share their work with not just you, with the global audience. You print today, write a poem today, somebody in New York is reading it. So many have become poets and authors and writers and young who don't need a publisher to go publish. They can just publish it online, and people have access. So platforms such as Wattpad, Kindle, Medium, direct publishing has democratized the publishing process. It allows writers to bypass traditional gatekeepers, come to the readers directly. Now, this has led to a proliferation of diverse voices and genres. And it challenges the dominance of mainstream publishing and promoting greater inclusivity in literature. Everyone can publish. The publisher can't tell you that you are not publishable. Tomorrow Penguin says, "Aap publishable author nahi hai." So and so says, "Nahi, aap koi problem nahi hai, I'm publishing, jisko acha lagega, 2 million followers ho gaya, aaram se rahiye." What could have been better? But that's what's changing. So self-publishing platforms have come up. They have played a very significant role in democratizing literature. It empowers authors from very diverse backgrounds to share their stories and perspectives with the world. I'm not saying that they're all the best, but the audience is also discerning. And there is an audience for the consumption of every kind of literature, क्योंकि audience का भी तो level होता है ना. Your academic background, your taste, your interest. All kinds of literatures are needed. Even in the in the printing world, you have all kinds of literature. You have B grade, C grade, D grade, X grade, Z grade literature which you don't want to touch. But there's all kinds. So similarly, just that access has improved. So authors have greater control over their publishing process through the platforms, and the literary landscape has become very inclusive, has become extremely diverse. I've already spoken about influence of social media. I don't want to go ahead on it, except to say that, blogging has a very important place now. Authors use social media not just to engage with their readers, but to get across. They build communities, they build groups of shared interests, people who have the similar interests. They come together. There are book bloggers, and they are influencers, which play academic influencers, not just social influencers. They are also academic influencers who play a significant role in shaping reading trends and driving book sales. You must have heard of Oprah Winfrey. Oprah Winfrey runs a show where she picks up one book in a month and then interviews that author. In fact, that's where I picked up one of the books that I'm reading by Eckhart. It's called The Value of Now. It's a fantastic book. He's a philosopher, thinker, and author. But she's the one who reads and then she talks about these books and then she forces people to look at more interesting things. These are academic. She's also a kind of an academic influencer because she's taking people there. So, social media has also facilitated conversations about literature, about culture, allowing people to discuss books, share insights, and participate in online book clubs and literary events. So, a lot of all that is happening. There is a lot of TV series and a lot of novels which are being made into TV series. You know, there is an emerging pattern of language, right? And language itself is evolving with the advent of new communication platforms. अभी तो हमको टाइम लग रहा है समझने में कि what each emoji means. There's you speak actually just through the emoji. I had to ask my nephew, please explain what do these mean. So he said, okay, Mossy, you go here, do this, do this, do this. You'll know what it means. So there are people who are just talking to one another through using emojis or emoticons. Internet slang is there. Abbreviations have become an integral part of modern language. ASAP हर वक्त लिखते रहते हैं या कुछ और लिखते हैं या you know. Sometimes I just can't figure. आजकल चल रहा है something called the FT. I'm not able to figure out what FT is. But I'm still trying to. But as a teacher of literature and language, that will be a challenge. You will have to learn, and you have to. Because it's all becoming a very integral part of modern language. And it is blurring the lines between formal and informal discourse. I'm still putting commas and full stops when I'm sending a message. Good morning, comma, so-and-so. Who's interested? GM. How are you, ma'am? Or something like that. You know, it just comes to GM. You are supposed to understand GM means good morning. Right? So all of that is changing. And it's not only in literature, but also in everyday communication. It's an indicator of how deeply immersed we are becoming in technology. We are becoming terribly, deeply immersed in technology. And technological influence will result in language change. So language diversity, the first thing that influences it is technology. As I've just spoken to you about it, they have revolutionized the use of language, leading to the emergence of new communication platforms, messaging apps kitne aa gaye, online forums aa gaye. All of that is happening. Global language is also impacted. Language diversity is also impacted by globalization and multilingualism. It has accelerated the pace of linguistic exchange and contact. Increased multilingualism, increased language borrowing is happening. People interact across linguistic boundaries. They adopt new words, new phrases, and idioms from other languages, enriching their linguistic repertoires, creating hybrid forms of speech that reflect cultural diversity and globalization. You know, I must say this, sometimes on YouTube, I randomly want to watch a really nonsensical film, so I'll type in free movies, romance. Okay, so something from Hallmark surfaces. It's like reading a Mills and Boon book. You don't have to apply your head. You know what's going on. It's relaxing. So when I'm overdone with everything, I feel, chalo, let's watch. I have done a study eventually. Almost 80% of those stories now have either yoga. The person is indulging in yoga, the heroine is going to a yoga class, taking the boy to a yoga class, and there's all this. No. When they fight with one another, also one of the heroes did namaste. I said, oh my God, how Indian is that? Had I ever thought that I would see it in a Western film made in Canada or somewhere, that two white people who are fighting will eventually, he looked at the girl and he said, stay happy. Doesn't that come from us? It was just an indicator to me how fast it is traveling and impacting. Why? Because those movies are also seen by people like us. Those movies are also seen by people of Indian origin or Asia. So you'll find that because they want that audience there, all kinds of things are happening. If it's happening in cinema, you can understand how it will be happening in the world. So the rise of digital communication and directly impacts linguistic evolution. You have these GIFs, you have internet slang, I talked about it. Memes, you see memes all the time. And so these forms of communication, are they relying only on visual? Are they relying only on language? No, they're also relying on visual and multimodal elements. So the boundary between written and visual language is getting blurred. And this is challenging the notion of linguistic competence and literacy. हमने बात किया था that the need ग्लोबलाइजेशन से होमोजेनाइजेशन होता है, ये तो होता ही है, but there is a growing awareness of importance of preserving your own language, your own culture, revitalizing it. Those languages which are endangered, which you think you need to preserve your linguistic heritage, that need has arisen. And the way technology is advancing, it is making it easier for us to do this, to retrieve, to restore, and to take forward, revitalizing endangered languages. And so digital technologies are constantly being leveraged, and community-based initiatives are there to promote language revitalization efforts. After the COVID-19 pandemic, digital platforms on literature is particular. The impact of digital platforms on literature is very distinctly visible. And a lot of abundance of literary works, I've already said it. I'd never imagined that I would have to ask when I was invited for a conference to deliver a keynote, is it online or offline or in person, right? But one has to do it now. And so that's happening. So I'd already spoken about this, that technological advancements have transformed the way literature is studied, with social media playing a substantial role in shaping modern literary styles. The full impact of social media trends on literature remains inconclusive as of now because it's expanding and growing. So we can't say where it will stop or what will happen. And I don't see it stopping. I always see it as evolving. If you look at the latest problem we have with research, usko kya kehte hain? What chat is it? Chat GPT. Look at the nuisance Chat GPT has created, that we have now had to look at a solution for evaluating our literature PhD students. Kitna percent Chat GPT se thesis आई है, और कितनी original है. So ये चलता रहेगा. Think of what will happen when AI comes in full form. So we have to do, what do? We have to make a distinction between social media literature. I'm finishing.
No, not like this. Absolutely.
Okay. So it is, what is recommended is maintain a distinction between social media literature and traditional literature. Literature that is coming traditionally and literature that is getting created through social media. We have to have, number two, a huge emphasis on preserving historical literary works. You have to integrate the current and the past. You can't ignore either. From the past, you have to bring them to the current. Literature serves as a means to connect globally. You have to remember that. You have to foster, therefore, cultural understanding. You will have to do that. You have to advocate for social justice. You will have to include more and more towards a more inclusive and compassionate world. So what are the findings of this paper that I thought I would present before you is that I've actually said it, I'll quickly say it, that digital platforms have revolutionized literature consumption and distribution, and all of these ebooks, etc. Democratization of literature has happened. Literature is experiencing a major shift towards inclusivity and representation with marginalized communities, challenging traditional canons, enriching storytelling, and fostering cultural understanding. Globalization has led to both homogenization and diversification of language usage. It impacts communication patterns and language vitality, with digital technologies playing a crucial role in facilitating linguistic exchange and preserving efforts. So through my talk today, I anticipate that the future of English literature or any literature in any language will be increasingly influenced by digital platforms, although variations in quality may rise. What I really want to focus on is do not forget to preserve historical literary works while adapting to changing modes of literary production and consumption. So I have delved into the contemporary evolution of literature and language and uncovering the profound impact of digital platform, the rise of different voices, and the globalization of linguistic expression. So by analyzing these trends, we gain invaluable insights into the cultural and linguistic landscape of the 21st century. That's the era in which you will be operating. And I think the task for you people is humongous. It's not just, it frightens me to think that if I was a teacher of literature today, a regular teacher of literature today for the next 20 years, what would I do? But then my generation was not prepared. Your generation has to be prepared. There is no way you can say it won't happen. I still remember as director of the academic staff college, when they introduced computers, I was busy teaching all the teachers computer and I thought to myself, hum to retire ho jayenge, I won't need it. Why need I learn? I really didn't begin to learn with my teachers. My first batch of teachers learned, and then suddenly it struck me that if I'm not going to learn, it's coming at such a speed that I'm going to be submerged in it before I realized it. And one of the reasons I think I continue to be serving in academia and working effectively even today is because I keep myself abreast with what's happening. I engage with technology, use a younger person to learn. As teachers, upgrading, upskilling yourselves is something you will have to constantly do. You don't know what is ChatGPT, get on with it. I'm going to get on with it in the next month. When my nephew says it's very easy, Mausi, kuch karna nahi, I'll explain to you. So I'm waiting for him to come to Lucknow. One day he'll open it and देखिए आप ये समझ रही, and then he laughs. He says, मैंने पूरी जिंदगी सब कुछ आपसे सीखा है. It's very sweet. It's very easy, Mausi, आप बहुत जल्दी पकड़ लेंगी. And true enough, I learn it. But I don't have the time and the energy कि बुढ़ापे में कि you go into it and say भैया क्या है A B C D से पढ़ो. You don't have that excuse. आप बुढ़े नहीं हैं. This is your generation. It's a changing time, and I hope that future research can delve deeper into specific aspects such as long-term effects of digital platforms on literary consumption habits, ongoing challenges and opportunities. कैसे inclusivity और representation ज़्यादा हो सकता है? कैसे preservation ज़्यादा हो सकता है of India? These can be your newer emerging areas. You can do a lot of comparative studies. You can do a lot of translation studies. You can do multiple things. So you have to expand, and you have to keep exploring these areas. You can, through this process, enrich your understanding of literature and language in the digital age and contribute to fostering a more inclusive, diverse, and culturally vibrant society. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for delivering such an insightful and thought-provoking keynote address at the inaugural session of this two-day national conference. Your expertise and profound understanding of the subject have set an inspiring tone for the discussion to follow. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us. Now, as Professor Humayun Yaqub mentioned, that when we announced for this conference, we received overwhelming response. And it was really a Herculean task for all of us here, the organizing committee, to pick and choose the abstracts that we received. But still, somehow we did it. And with the support of the university, we were able to bring out an abstract book. So now I would request the distinguished guests to kindly release the abstract book that we have prepared. Thank you so much.
I would also like to just say thank you to all of you, and I would like to request to be ready because I have to deliver the keynote address at the ERA University's FDP program at 11. So kindly let me go and accept my apology.
We understand, ma'am, you have a busy schedule.
Yes, yes. No, don't worry. Let them be. They should listen to Rajneesh rather than accompany me. They don't have to. Nobody should accompany me. It's your job to listen.
Please take your seat. Now, without any further delay, I request the guest of honor for today's function, Professor Rajneesh Arora, to share his views on the subject with us.
Respected Professor Shagufta Shaheen, OSD Maulana Azad National Urdu University, Hyderabad, Professor Nishi Pandey, Professor Emeritus, Lucknow University, Professor Huma Yaqub, in charge, Lucknow campus, Dr. Muhammad Faiz, Department of English. At the outset, I would like to thank Professor Huma Yaqub for inviting me to the conference. The topic is evolution and shifts, emerging patterns in literature and language. So it's my turn now to talk about language and linguistics in the context of NEP 2020. Why I chose to talk about NEP 2020? Because a lot of shift has happened, is going to happen because of NEP 2020. So I'll restrict myself to language and linguistics during my session now. Professor Nishi Pandey said that she's going to learn ChatGPT next month, right? And let me share with you that I downloaded ChatGPT only last month. I resisted it for a long time, thinking that, it's a sin to do that. It's perhaps, not ethical to, look at ChatGPT. I had that kind of idea. But very soon we learned, of course, we had this idea that we can't escape it. And we have to learn artificial intelligence, and we have to use it usefully, fruitfully, I should say, because there's no escape from it, whatever it is. Professor Nishi Pandey referred to it as a nuisance, right? But we have to turn this nuisance into a boon, perhaps. I think that's what we need to, look at artificial intelligence or ChatGPT for that matter. The three languages that we need to focus on today is mother tongue, the local Indian language, and the third language perhaps could be English or any other language for that matter. If at all there is any hierarchy, it has to be in the same order. Your mother tongue first, and uh, any other second language, any other language, Indian language, and then perhaps English. When I got my first job in 1987, my head of the department in Markanda National College, Shahabad. Immediately after masters, I got this job. So he said that all that I needed to do was to translate the text into simple Hindi. I did exactly that. Perhaps I used a version of grammar translation method. Perhaps it was the translanguaging. Now that I look back, translanguaging. It was definitely not grammar translation, because grammar translation is too technical. Translating the text into simple Hindi is not grammatical, is not grammar translation, right? But you can call it a version of grammar translation, and you can call it translanguaging. Perhaps Professor Nishi Pandey, talked about translanguaging. Translanguaging is something when you use other languages, when you use your local languages to drive home a point, to interpret certain things, to facilitate the learning of anything, or if it's language learning. I think for example, if you are learning English, if you're teaching English, translanguaging is the best thing to do, because it is recommended. Some enthusiastic teachers, in the classroom, especially when they teach English, they think that they don't need to allow any other language in the classroom but English. We must understand that the books on methodology that came from the West, that came from actually England, did not recommend bilingual methodology. They did not recommend bilingual methodology because if we look at the British society, that is largely monolingual. They don't do any other language. The moment they get something in any other language, it gets translated. It gets you get a movie, you get subtitles in English. So there's little motivation for any Britisher to learn a foreign language or any other language. So they are largely monolingual. So they would never recommend a bilingual methodology because they don't know how to do it, and their books will not sell. The industry, the teaching industry, the English industry, the English language industry, that will not flourish if they talk about bilingual methodology. But of course some critical pedagogues, they have started talking about, they talked about bilingual methodology. And the bilingual methodology is important because it's linked to the question of your identity. Your language is your identity. If you don't give your students this a chance to speak in their language, whatever language they are learning, if you don't give students the chance to express themselves in their own language, then you are denying them the right to their own language, the right to their identity. So that is problematic. So local language, your mother tongue, they are most important, and they must be emphasized. Without you know so some people, for reasons best known to them, they would even tell others that I don't know how to speak Hindi. I don't know how to speak Urdu. I don't know how to speak, my language. My parents speak that language, but I don't. I'm not very fluent. So again, such people may sometimes pretend. It's not that they don't know their language, but they think that, it's not cool perhaps to talk about, such things. If you're teaching English, so you need to have this English only rule, perhaps. So that is the issue. I chose to focus on the pedagogy part of this topic. So going further, uh, if, for example, this uh, communicative language teaching, for example, what is communicative language teaching? Um, when I was in class 10, I was learning Sanskrit. I had no idea what communicative language teaching was all about. But the methodology that the teacher used in teaching Sanskrit in class 10, when I look back, I can say, well, because the teacher started with the chit chat, and the teacher started introduced the lesson in a contextual way, and introduced the subject, and that was perhaps communicative language teaching, or maybe a version of communicative language teaching. So labels can be given later, theories come later, but the phenomena always exist, right? So this is what I think we need to understand. I learned about communicative language teaching only when I went to Hyderabad for my PGDT after doing my master's from Kurukshetra University, and that was my first introduction to communicative language teaching. So what was communicative language teaching? It was to replace the structural approach to language teaching. And it's not that, for example, when I did my language, the teachers use structural approach in the classroom. It's not that we did not learn the language. We are doing a good job still, right? But yes, I mean, it replaced structural approach. There were some issues with that. Communicative language teaching came, and people started talking about communicative competence. Delheim's concept of communicative competence. And the goal of the language is not just to improve the linguistic competence, that is grammatical competence, but to improve what may be called communicative competence. And communicative competence may have, other dimensions also. So second is pragmatic competence or socio-linguistic competence. Third is discourse competence, and fourth is strategic competence. This is relevant even today, this communicative competence. I mean, because this is impressive, though it came from the West, it's relevant in some ways, and it's problematic in so many other ways. I'll talk about that. Grammatical competence. I mean, in structural approach, we focused only on grammatical competence. In later, we added pragmatic competence, socio-linguistic competence. Okay, the language should be used in its social context according to what social context allows or approves. And then you have discourse competence, for example. Discourse competence is, for example, how one sentence is linked to another sentence in a logical way. That would be your discourse competence. Or, for example, in non-linear text, for example, if you're looking at advertisements, if you're looking at, lots of visual text, for example, at the internet, you need to see the connections between different parts of the text, which is non-linear. The text is non-linear, and that's how you look at it as discourse. You look at it as one unit, and that's how you understand it. So that was discourse competence for you. And then was the strategic competence. When they talked about strategic competence, they said that you need to be polite, you need to be impolite, you need to be formal, you need to be informal, you should know when to be formal, you should know when to be informal. So all this was part of your strategic competence, and together, all these together made communicative competence. So if you may use politeness to get your work done, you may use politeness to control others also. I mean, a critical view is that politeness can be used to control others, right? आप दूसरे को नकारा बना देते हो जब आप politeness से किसी को control करते हो. And this is husband and wife do this to each other, right? Friends do this to each other, right? So we control people with our politeness, our softness. This is critical view. And another critical view is that we are never polite or impolite. We uh, we decide our level of politeness or impoliteness. If two people are comfortable with the degree of politeness or impoliteness, it's fine, right? It's for the third person to see what is polite or impoliteness, but what is polite or impolite. But third person has no business if he or she is not part of the discourse, part of the conversation. So naturally, when the third person joins, your level of conversation may change, right? But when two people are talking, I mean, maybe private conversation, so they will decide what is polite and what is impolite for them, right? And I'm not going beyond that, because what you see on media, because today there's a lot of controversy about it, because when media presents something that becomes public, and that is definitely problematic, people would object to that. But I'm talking about when two people are talking at individual level, so they will be comfortable with a certain degree of politeness or impoliteness, and that is perfectly fine. This is critical view of using politeness or impoliteness. That was your strategic competence, for that matter. So the problem was that communicative competence assumed the British context or the American context, the context in which English is used as the first language. Now, what is polite or what is formal for us may not be formal or polite for them, right? So the levels of politeness, the levels of formality or informality, and how people greet each other, how they use their body language, how they converse, how they talk, um, what is their orientation towards each other, all this would be different in a different context. So when the context is different, so that was the problem with communicative language teaching, because if we want to use it for our purpose, this communicative language teaching, then the shift has to be in our context. But the problem is that all the theory about or on communicative language teaching assumes an English context. That is problematic. So you can use it, you can change it a bit, and bring in your context and see. So that is our Indian response, to communicative language teaching, if at all we want to, we want to see some value in it. Then we started talking about this task-based methodology. Then we came to post-method condition. What is post-method condition? No method is good or bad. If it works in the classroom, that is the best method. So what will work for you, what will work for your context, may not work in any other context. So you need to evolve your methodology, right? You need to check, you need to see for yourself what works in your context. If it works in your context, it's the best method. If it doesn't work in your context, so you will decide. You would know that the method is working. Your students would tell you their responses. You can actually record and check for yourself whether this is working or not. And you can certainly share the best practices that you had in the classroom, but still you would need labels. That doesn't mean that you don't need to read a book on methodology, because you need to give certain techniques some labels, and you would say, when I use this was perhaps such and such technique, and that worked in the classroom, or this was probably akin to such and such thing, such and such technique, and therefore it worked. Or maybe it was a version of this. You can speak like this, and that's how you can tell others that this practice, when you did in the classroom, that worked, and that's how you can make others aware of what worked for you in the classroom. um, um, Going back to this National Education Policy 2020, I mean, if I can quote from NEP 2020, some fundamental principles that will guide the education system are multidisciplinarity and holistic education. Multidisciplinarity, right? You can be interdisciplinary only when you are multidisciplinary. That means availability of disciplines. You need to make available to your students, multidisciplinarity, multidisciplines, lots of disciplines at the same time, so that they can choose. एंड इतिहास गवाह है कि जिसने भी कुछ इजाद किया वो अपने कंफर्ट से आगे जा करके एक्सीडेंटली इंसिडेंटली इजाद किया, अपने सब्जेक्ट से आगे जा करके शायद अचानक कुछ सोचा, and they were interdisciplinary, they were transdisciplinary perhaps, and therefore this is important. This multidisciplinarity is important so that you can be interdisciplinary. Then promoting multilingualism and power of language, power of knowledge. So multilingualism is our reality. We are multilingual. I mean, all of us speak at least 3 languages, 2 or 3 languages. Some of us speak 4 or 5 languages also. We are comfortable with that. That is our reality. So anything, any teaching that does not recognize our situation, does not take into consideration, is bound to fail. Any pedagogy, for that matter, if we do not acknowledge this multilingualism in our our in India, we will fail actually as far as our methodology is concerned. Then extensive use of technology. We've already talked about this AI, for example. So Professor Nishi Pandey also talked about so many texts, digital texts, and things like that. So definitely, the shift is towards technology, and we need to, use it in a healthy way, in a useful way, not run away from it, rather be part of it. Then respect for diversity and respect for the local context. Now, we've been talking about unity in diversity also. When the West looks at the concept of unity in diversity, they focus on differences. When we want to look at this unity in diversity, we would like to focus on similarities rather than differences. And because of the similarities only, we are one. We are comfortable. So that we must understand. Then full equity and inclusion. This in NEP, inclusion or inclusive education must have been used in a particular way, but we can exclude students, in so many ways. We exclude students who don't wish us in the corridors. We exclude students who don't listen to us. We exclude students who don't answer our questions in English. We exclude students for so many other reasons, right? So again, the teacher cannot go to the classroom with such whims and fancies, and the teacher has to be samdarshi. The teacher has to be samdarshi is godly quality, looking at everyone the same way, right? So the students may have different mindset, different way of looking at things. So if at all we are unhappy about something or for something, we need to forgive them, right? Because the teacher has to make sure that everybody comes along. सबको साथ में लेके चलना है. This is what I think a teacher need to do. Rootedness and pride in India and its rich, diverse, ancient, and modern culture and knowledge systems and traditions. Right now, this is most important. I would like to talk about phonetics. Um, when I was doing my masters, there was a teacher who taught us phonetics, and I saw lots of students running after him, because they found it very fascinating. Phonetics, जो प्रोनाउंसिएशन की बात जो करते हैं, तलफ़ुज़ की जिसमें बात की जाती है, उच्चारण की बात की जाती है, तो it was fascinating because we could correct our own people, we could correct our parents, and we found it we found it marvelous. And at that time I decided that I would like to go to Hyderabad for doing phonetics after doing my masters in English. And I went to Hyderabad, and I did a dissertation in phonetics that was a phonological description of English spoken in Haryana. Then I switched to discourse analysis later. But this now the problem with phonetics is today, when I teach phonetics in the classroom, I start with a disclaimer. This part is very important. Why I start with a disclaimer? Because I say that this is neither necessary nor desirable, right? If you are talking about phonetics as a subject, it's fine. But if you are looking at phonetics, as a way to improve your pronunciation and look at, standard British English as something superior, then it's going to be problematic. So don't have any kind of hierarchies in mind. People who can speak, who can come out with that kind of British accent, उनको कोई सुरखाब के पर नहीं लग जाते, वो उसमें कोई बड़ी बात नहीं है, right? So in fact, again, that would happen at the cost of your identity. If you speak, people should know that you're from UP. People should know that you're from Tamil Nadu. People should know that you're from Punjab. People should know that you're from such and such place. That your language has to be part of your identity, even if you are speaking English. And the teacher can, make it very clear that we will teach English in our own terms, right? अपनी शर्तों पे हम पढ़ाएंगे अंग्रेजी को, राइट? हम उनकी नहीं सुनेंगे, हम उनकी बात नहीं करेंगे, हम जो खुद समझेंगे उसमें हम इंडियनिज्म्स को भी हम इंक्लूड कर देंगे. बट so far, because we don't have a document, that talks about, Indian English, we don't have a full, complete document, or maybe we don't have a grammar of Indian English. It may happen if we are determined. We can, our grammarians, our phoneticians can sit together and come out with such documents also, and we'll be able to talk about Indian English. So far, we just look at it as a concept. But the thing is that when I do phonetics now, I do it with a disclaimer. I tell them that it's all right if you don't get it, if you don't change your pronunciation. It's perfectly fine. You need to clear your test. You need to clear your exam. That's all, because you're doing masters in linguistics. So this is fine. So because we are doing phonetics, and we will relate it to English. And now the thing is that today, when we talk about phonetics, we need to bring in, for example, Panini, right? Because now the thing is that when we do phonetics, we think that it was Edinburgh, it was England, that gave phonetics to us. Panini talked about phonetics long time ago, right? Unfortunately, we never acknowledged it. We don't acknowledge it in the classroom, right? So Panini talked about phonetics, and हम वो जो कवर्ग पवर्ग चवर्ग तवर्ग की बात करते हैं, पापा बाबा माँ चाचा जाजना, very scientific, right? According to place of articulation, according to manner of articulation. It was discussed, it was brought to the world long ago, right? Before the West, before the Britishers started talking about it, and they started teaching phonetics and spoken English and things like that. So, for example, we can give them pre-Paninian, language awareness. We can discuss structure of Ashtadhyayi. We can talk about meta language of Panini. We can say, Paninian grammar as a generative grammar. We can talk about कारका theory, कर्ता ने कर्म को करण से संप्रदान के लिए, right? So like this, you can because when you talk about your subject in the classroom, whatever you can bring from Indian knowledge systems, you can, right? For example, when you look at discourse analysis also, when you interpret text also, right? Abhinav Gupta, for example, you talk about this connotations, and everything was there before. It was not that again these people gave us these things. We were given these things long ago. So I must tell you that even an advertisement today can be discussed using the theories given by Abhinav Gupta or something, right? That is perfectly fine. So we need to actually acknowledge ourselves. That is very important. The problem is that we don't talk about it in the classroom, and we think that it came. Professor Nishi Pandey was talking about yoga. I mean, people are turning to yoga in a big way, and but again, the problem is that without acknowledging, yoga is ours, right? Without acknowledging, so that is the problem, right? When we talk about, for example, metaphors, right? Our language is full of metaphors, right? उर्दू देखिए, हिंदी देखिए, आप हमारे जो फिल्म सॉन्ग्स देखिए, एक एक लाइन में दो दो तीन तीन चार चार मेटाफर्स हैं, राइट? आप उनकी बात करिए क्लास में. मेटाफर जरूरी थोड़ी ना कि अंग्रेजी की बात ही करनी है. माई लव इज लाइक ए रेड रेड रोज और माई लव इज रेड रोज. आपको मतलब एमएच एब्रम्स की डिक्शनरी से हमेशा उसको बात करने की जरूरत नहीं है. आप अपनी बात करिए. आप अपनी फिल्म सॉन्ग्स को लेकर के आइए. जो भी आप किस लेवल पे आप उसको इंट्रोड्यूस कर सकते हैं वो आप देखिए कि कब कर सकते हैं. मास्टर्स में जरूर कर सकते हैं, शायद बीए में ना करें, right? But why not talk about your own poetry when you explain these concepts to the students? Tell them, if you are teaching stylistics, Dr. Faiz, for example, does stylistics. आप यहाँ आए किस लिए? आप यहाँ किस लिए आए? यहाँ आप किस लिए आए? So many stylistic variations, but this is not possible in English, right? So Urdu and Hindi, it's possible. You can have these stylistic variations. So whatever concepts you can use, using your own language, I think you should do that. I think that has to be now the shift, or is going to be the shift towards a new pedagogy. Not that teachers are not doing it. Good teachers are doing this. Sometimes I feel uncomfortable when this reflective approach to language teaching was introduced. Reflective, as if pata nahi kahan se lekar ke aaye hain, reflective approach to language teaching. Are bhai, reflective approach to language teaching, good teachers were always reflecting upon your own experiences in the classroom and learning by it, right? Usko aapne ek kitab mein bana diya, reflective approach kar diya, usme kuch aapne kuch parameters, kuch usko thoda sa style se aapne likh diya, usko aapne Wallace ne kaha ki ye reflective approach hai, unka naam ho gaya, right? 100 years ago also teachers were reflective. So reflective approach क्या है? कोई इसमें कोई बड़ी बात थोड़ी नहीं है. Schema theory, is there anything to which schema theory cannot be applied? हर चीज में schema है. Yeah? Your mind map, your experience of things before will help you interpret things. That is your schema theory. So nothing so great about schema theory for that matter, but yes, it can be applied anywhere, everywhere. आप बात करें इश्क मजाजी की, आप बात करें इश्क हकीकी की क्लास में, पोइट्री की बात करें, छाप तिलक सब छीनी मुँह से नैना मिलाए के. हाउ यू आर यूजिंग दिस पोइट्री एट डिफरेंट लेवल्स. सूफी, राइट? आप उसकी बात करें. Whenever, even when you're teaching English, why I'm saying so that you don't need to stick to English all the time, because you're teaching language, you're looking at language, and the richness of your own language can be discussed in the classroom first, so that they understand the concept. मुकाम फैज कोई राह में जचा ही नहीं, जो सुए यार से निकले तो कुएदार चले, right? So suayar and kuedar can be metaphors also. I mean, it has a metaphorical meaning also, right? So you can talk about that, literal versus metaphorical, right? यहाँ लिबास की कीमत है आदमी की नहीं, मुझे गिलास बड़े दो, शराब कम कर दो. Now sharab is used in a positive way. I said it earlier also once. I mean, when we say this, we are not recommending the use of sharab, but we are saying that this is a metaphor, positive metaphor, right? Especially in this context, it's been used because container is more important than content. This is what the irony is. That's how you explain. So tell them that what it means, what metaphor is used and why it is used and what it means actually. So that's how, you need to actually talk about things in the classroom. And finally, अगर आप अकबर इलाहाबादी को माफ करना चाहें तो कर सकते हैं। जब अकबर इलाहाबादी ने कहा तालीम औरतों की ज़रूरी तो है मगर खातून खाना हो सबा की परी न हो, राइट। मैंने इसलिए कहा क्योंकि कई लोग उनको नहीं माफ करते हैं, लेकिन अगर ये मान लिया जाए कि खातून खाना डज नॉट नेसेसरली मीन हाउसवाइफ, that means if your heart is at home, that is khatun khana. And why can't khatun khana can be sabaki pari perhaps, right? So that can be problematic also. People may disagree also, people may agree also, और कुछ लोग माफ कर सकते हैं, कुछ लोग नहीं कर सकते हैं। ये आपके ऊपर है, आप किस तरह से उस मेटाफर को देखना चाहेंगे, किस तरह से समझना चाहेंगे। The reality that you bring to the text, right? That's how you interpret things. Yeah, your experience, your background, your outlook, everything would be responsible for interpreting things. So do it in the classroom with your students. Don't be scared, don't be nervous. And I think even if you want to reject something, there's no harm in discussing it and then rejecting it. I think therein lies the wisdom. मैं यहाँ पे अपनी बात खत्म करना चाहूँगा। धन्यवाद, शुक्रिया। Thank you.
Very correctly said, sir. My language, my identity. No matter we are teachers of English, but my language is my identity. My mother tongue is Hindi and I am proud of it. My mother tongue is so-and-so, so I am proud of that. I think I would not be incorrect in saying आपने गागर में सागर भरने का जो मुहावरा है उसको चरितार्थ कर दिया. Thank you so much, sir, for such a mesmerizing talk. Now, I humbly request Professor Shagufta Shaheen for a presidential remark.
Good morning, Assalamu alaikum. It's always a pleasure to be here in this campus, not just because I'm from the Department of English, but because also I'm also in charge of the Lucknow campus. So I'm very interested in what is happening in Lucknow, and I'm very happy that it is doing well. But I envision a much larger presence of Lucknow in the future, and I'm looking forward to all your cooperation to see that you emerge into a very solid campus here and have an identity distinct on its own rather than be just a satellite campus of Manu. So I look forward to working together to see it happen in the near future. The topic, we're talking about is evolution and shifts. You have such wonderful speakers who have exhausted and covered almost every area. So there's hardly anything that is left for me to speak on, but I'll just make 2 or 3 comments because I can see the convener also getting a little restless because of the time. So I'll just brief it up a little. Change, as you all know, change is dynamic. We cannot be static. So there are always changes happening everywhere, in every platform, so also in literature. Every age of literature, every period of literature has had its own challenges, and we have all kept abreast with those challenges. Not just in terms of readers of literature, but also as teachers of literature. We have seen the various evolutions, various changes, various trends that have been happening in literature. And I believe, as a teacher, the teachers are beyond these changes. Teachers are basically very, very resilient as compared to any other ordinary human being, especially teachers of humanities. We have overcome many challenges, from teaching in the Gurukul in the forest without a blackboard and a chalk to the chalk and blackboard. And today, I think it was online, the online challenges that we had during the COVID, and now the artificial intelligence. So I'm sure we are going to overcome this challenge also and come across and tune our methodology to overcome all these challenges. And this change you're talking about is very, very important, because we all know that literature is something, no matter which, I'm just not talking about English literature here, I'm talking of literatures here, which documents history, which is a record of history. So we don't need to directly go to history to understand it or understand the changes that are happening in history, because what literature does is exactly the same, though it might use a sprinkling or seasoning of fiction to document history. So I always tell my students that we want you to study the evolution of language or the changes in the structure of language that Professor Rajni Arora was also talking about. We don't need to go to study it directly as a history of English language or history of the structure of English language. If you just do a comparative study of the language that was spoken during the time of Chaucer, then coming to the neoclassical age, the romantic age, just study the changes in language to the present, to the use of emoticons that Professor Nishi Pandey was talking about. We have the whole history of the evolution of English language right in front of us. So you don't need to directly study as a theoretical paper on the evolution of the changes, the history language, how it has evolved, how there was a change in vocabulary, additions, deletions in language. You have right in front of you in all the texts that you're studying, maybe in the Department of Literature. So also, we also get a chance to study the thematic changes across period, because literature is something that represents the pulse of the time. So when you study the theme of the novels, or maybe during the Victorian age, and the theme of the present day novels, you get a change of what was the pulse of the society at that time. You also get to understand the status of women and the topics that we were writing about in the Victorian age, and today what are they writing about. So the changing trends, not just in society, but also the status of language, the status of women, everything there is right in front of you in literature. Don't you think that is enough to counter all those who are saying that we should close down literature departments? Those who are very, very dismissive of literature departments, I think this is right in front of us, that literature is immortal for us to understand and to teach us to be more humane and to be more respectful and tolerant and to understand the other. So I think all those, we need to raise our voice against those who are talking about this, are adopting this very dismissive stance against literature. And that is where we come in, especially the Indian scenario, where we are well versed in more than one language. That is our contribution to our mother tongue. And this might sound very strange coming from an English teacher. Again, I was very happy to note what Professor Rajni Arora was also talking about, to be true to yourself in terms of your pronunciation, because our identity is directly linked to our pronunciation. We don't have to imitate the native speaker of English, though it might sound very strange coming from an English teacher. But I also tell my students in my class, don't try to use an accent, because it sounds very artificial. Don't try to feel very, very embarrassed about making mistakes, because no native speaker of English feels embarrassed when they're speaking Urdu. They are not embarrassed about their pronunciation. So why should we actually this is a tribute we are doing to the English language while learning their language. So don't be very embarrassed if you're not using their pronunciation. They are also not trying to be, they are okay with using Urdu or Hindi or in whatever manner they speak about. So we were talking about the various trends, the various changes that we are noticing here, shifting from the emphasis to the writer, to the reader, from the author, then making the author dead and shifting it to the reader, and now the text. So we have all come across these phases in even literary theory, also in language, in literature, and we are all trying to cope up with all these changes, and I think we are managing to do it very well. Also, what Professor Nishi Pandey was talking about, the narratology and the changes we see in that, from the oral tradition to the various stream of consciousness to the narrative voice, the multiple voices that we have. So there, in every aspect of literature, there has been a change, and as readers or as teachers of English language, we have managed to face those challenges and address them and arrive at a resolution. Aren't we reading Shakespeare in a different way? That is why Shakespeare, it is we as readers, we as teachers who keep him alive, who make it relevant in today. I think Shakespeare has been taught right from a grandmother's age, and still it's being prescribed. Why? Because we are applying our latest current contemporary theories and understanding to these classical texts. Today, same Merchant of Venice, it has not changed. The storyline is the same. Everybody knows it. But why is it relevant? Because we are trying to read them through the feministic perspective. We are trying to understand why Shakespeare, who was born in a time when women didn't have the kind of access, yet manages to portray women as such an important character that she is more intelligent than all the men put together in Merchant of Venice. Okay, so that says it all. So, were women really, in terms of Shakespeare, was he really a misogynist as he's made out to be? They are characters, naturally, where he shows women as, but in most of, at least some of his plays, he has given them a very important role to play. So, again, it makes us ponder whether, what is the real status of women then? So, also in terms of the treatment of Jew, we still wonder, okay, why it was tolerable there to show him in the way he was portrayed. So we learn to speak of this, we learn to understand Shakespeare from these changing trends in our understanding, in our perspectives, which are also evolving, which are also changing along with the trends in literature. Our perspectives, our understanding, our application to the classical texts are also evolving. It's not just the trends which are evolving, how we perceive them, how we read them, how we analyze them, that also is changing. And I think that's one of a wonderful thing for literature, because I also tell this to my students to make them a little comfortable, that one good thing about literature is that, like in maths, when 2 plus 2 can only be 4, in literature, 2 plus 2 can be 0, can be infinity. No answer in literature is wrong as long as you justify it at the end. So we have these perspectives that we need to apply to the text. And it is these perspectives which make us tolerant to the others, which make us understand the other. So which is very, very important, especially the NEP is a blessing in disguise for all of us, especially university like ours, where Urdu is a medium instruction, where it is, I think, a powerful tool for us to help us transmit the greatness of our literature to the rest of the world. And I was just attended a conference at EFLU the other day. We were talking about how we have to we think that the Western literature is the only literature. I remember when I was a student, the only literature that was available was British literature, or American literature, or at the most Indian literature in English. We didn't have access to any of the classical literature. So we were made to think that English literature meant just reading English, meant literature written by the native speakers of English. But in a post-colonial world, we cannot just restrict, especially when you're talking about the empire writing back. Why are we not being so inclusive of including all the other literature that is being written in our Indian languages, and through our translation, pay our tribute to the greatness of our own literature by translating it, by comparing it with the other literatures of the world? I think that is our greatest tool that we have, greatest weapon that we have as in the Indian scenario, when we have command over mother tongue also and English language. I think that is the greatest homage that we can do to our mother tongue, and also to see to it that it reaches the rest of the world also. Because again, like Professor Arora was talking about, We don't take into account Panini. We don't need to take into account, but the classics that are there in our in our own literature. So the other day, when again the same conference, I was the very popular literature fiction that is being read is 12 Reasons Why. And you know how we are trying to understand these Western texts through through the moksha theory, through the Maya theory. So we are trying to understand the literary theories. We're extending to the Western literature also to understand that there is a possibility of reading those texts through the Indian lens also. We don't need, it is only when we listen to Madonna's song singing the Rumi we understand, yes, there is some great literature in the Asia also. So it is the West which has to bring to us the greatness of our own literature. We don't ourselves don't acknowledge that so much great literature is there among us also. And coming to Chat GPT, I'm one step behind both Professor Pandey and Professor Arora because I have still not downloaded it. I still, there's so much of a mental block against Chat GPT. I have to overcome that before I do it. And I also was very happy when Professor Pandey was talking about, once in a way giving into reading what is called as pulp fiction or popular fiction. But I was reading one very, very, what I would say, very chick literature, whatever you might call it, though again that's a very dismissive term to call it. But to understand that literature engages with everyone. It's just not that you have to read only philosophical text or great canonical text or classical text. Once in a while, yes, this is a rereading of Jane Austen's novels. From that is the text that I'm just, because I was traveling, I just picked it up from the airport and I bought it. So A Weekend with Darcy. So it's a very popular, very girlish kind of a novel. But it was very, very interesting to, you feel very embarrassed to read such a text. But yes, that is also a popular fiction, and it serves the function of literature being both aesthetic, not just pedantic, not just always it has to have a social message. Once in a while, we need to give in and read literature for enjoyment also. I think I've covered most of the point there. Okay, I would not take much of your time. Thank you for inviting me here, and I wish the conference, all the sexes here, and I'm sure the deliberations that you arrive here will be helpful in taking literature forward in understanding and strengthening our way of understanding literature. Because again, I don't remember which speaker said about it, how it helps us to be inclusive and how it helps us to erase the linguistic and geographical boundaries and helps to bring us together. And that is the reason I have been working on trying to establish comparative literature and linguistics at Manu also, so that, with the Urdu as the central language and all other languages there in the School of Social Languages, Linguistics and Indology, I hope it serves as a fertile ground for understanding the other. Thank you.
Now, that is what is called presidential remark. Ma'am, you encompassed, I think, almost all the possible aspects of the theme of the conference. Thank you so much for such a wonderful talk. On behalf of the organizing team, I extend my deepest gratitude to everyone who has made today's inaugural session a success. First, I would like to express sincere thanks to the chief patron of the conference, our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Syed Ainul Hasan, for giving us the opportunity to organize this academic event. Equal thanks are due to Professor Shagufta Shaheen, Officer on Special Duty, who happens to be the coordinator of the Lucknow Satellite Campus also. Without her support and guidance, the Herculean task of organizing this event would not have been possible. I wish to express my gratitude to our distinguished keynote speaker for her invaluable address, which has truly set the stage for exciting discussions and deliberations ahead. Her expertise and insights have been both enlightening and inspiring. We are also grateful to our esteemed guest of honor, the plenary speakers who will be presenting their talks during the coming 2 days, and the paper presenters for the event, whose presence and participation has ensured the success of this conference. A special thanks to Professor Humayun Yaqub, in charge Lucknow campus, for the enthusiastic support that she rendered at every step during the preparation and organization of this event. Last but not the least, thanks to the organizing team, volunteers, non-teaching staff, and the support staff for their hard work in bringing this event to life. We really look forward to engaging sessions and fruitful exchanges over the next 2 days. Thank you all once again. Now I request everybody to kindly rise for the national anthem. Anthem team. Tahira and Nazia, please.
जन गण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड़ उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्छल जलधि तरंगा तब शुभ नामे जागे तब शुभ आशीष मांगे गाए तब जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे.
Now we'll have a short tea break, and after that we'll assemble here once again for the first technical session, in which we'll have Dr. Seher Rahman presenting the plenary talk, and around 6 or 7 papers will be presented in that session. So we come back, let's say, after 20-25 minutes. Thank you so much.
Nazia, Tahira,